Hello, class. I'm speaking to you from my front porch for the first of what hopefully will be weekly talks that have to do with the craft of writing. And by craft, I don't mean so much all the rules that you might hear about what makes good writing, but ways to listen to your own writing very closely and pull out what's really going to bring that writing alive as much as possible. I once had a student who said to me when I was teaching at the University of Kansas, well, isn't poetry like 90% craft and 10% passion? And I told him, no, it's the other way around. He's gone on to recently write an experimental novel that's about to be published, and he's also concluded it's the other way around. The writing itself is what you aim for, and you don't want to sanitize how you use the craft of writing so much that you wipe out the power of that writing. On the other hand, there's all kinds of things you can learn about how to bring your writing more alive, how to enliven the passion that's behind the words, the vibrancy in the language through looking at craft. And so today, talking to you from the corner of my front porch, I'm going to talk to you about original details and specific images. In other words, what's often called showing instead of telling. In just about any creative writing class that's kind of worth the time, somebody at some point will talk about the importance of showing rather than telling. By showing, we take something we're writing about and we open it up so that the reader can enter into this and draw his or her own conclusions about meaning. Telling is more of a summation of what happened or, what we just passed through. So I'd like to kind of give you some examples of what makes for good specific details that bring your writing out loud. While I use specifics or original detail, which is a term that Mirriam-Goldberg used often in writing down the bones, or showing, I'm basically talking about the same thing, which is, to paraphrase William Wordsworth, how the way to the universal is through the specific. Instead of saying, that tree to the side of me, I would instead say, that Osage orange tree with the large green brain-looking fruit that grow larger and larger each day in late August until they're the size of grapefruits and can tumble off the tree onto the windshield of my husband's Toyota over there, where last year they actually broke the windshield. I would describe maybe the way the light looks on the leaves, or a butterfly that just disappeared into the tree, or just how the shadow plays across what I'm looking at. And from opening up the description without getting too arduous and driving people into the ground with details of description, by opening up the description, we open up the writing. So I'd like to share with you an example from Chris Offit's book, The Same River Twice. I heard him read in Iowa this spring. Wonderful writer. Does a lot of memoir, and this is one of his more famous ones. So listen to how he describes an ordinary sky. The Midwestern land has a softly undulating quality, like concentric circles spreading from a rock tossed into a farm pond. Before the giant plowing icebergs, water covered everything here. Often I see the bottom of an ancient ocean quite clearly, the ripples left by forgotten tides, the gentle upsweeps of a reef, and I imagine that the land is still under water. I possess gills in the woods and move against the resistance, exploring an abandoned sea. Cloud shadows are great fish moving swiftly overhead. The prairie disappears into the glare of refracted sunlight, fading with the depth, and becomes the living floorboards of an ocean. Jet contrails in the sky are a ship's prow, cleaving the surface far away. Breath bubbles around my head as a movement slows. Sound drifts into silence. I have slid out of my century and into an undersea past along with an uncaring force. I share that with you because he's simply describing a land that is often passed over or just described as cornfields or flat or living in Kansas, we often hear the phrase flyover country, but he's opening it up to its history, to its geology, and to his own personal interface with all of that, bringing it alive, making it more vibrant, helping you see where he is. To go to an example from fiction, after I drink my water, I turn to one of my favorite novelists, Barbara Kingsolver, in her book, The Bean Trees. And here's just a paragraph from the book. It's also about the sky. We crossed the Arizona state at sunup. The clouds were pink and fat and hilarious looking, like hippo ballerinas in a Disney movie. The road took us through a place called Texas Canyon that looked nothing like Texas, heaven be praised for that, but looked like nothing else I had ever seen. It was a kind of forest, except that in place of trees there were these puffy-looking rocks, shaped like roundish animals and roundish people. Rocks stacked on top of one another like piles of copulating potato bugs. When the sun hit them, they turned pink. The whole scene looked too goofy to be real. We whizzed by a roadside sign on what I could make out as a dinosaur. I wondered if it told people what kinds of rocks they were, or if it was just saying they were actually petrified dinosaur turds. I was laughing my head off. "This is too much," I said to the Indian child. "This is the best thing I had seen in years." Whether my car conked out or not, I made up my mind to live in Arizona. So, here she uses all kinds of images to give you a state of the speaker here, the narrator of the book, by showing you how her mind works, by giving you a sense about how she interprets where she is. Instead of saying, "I'm kind of a whimsical person who can see all kinds of magical things in the ordinary," she shows you that. I'd like to conclude with a poem. And this is a poem by William Stafford, who I'm also going to write a little piece about that will be up on Moodle as our featured writer of the week. And it's also a poem that can open up into a writing exercise for you. This is called A Glass Face in the Rain, and as you can see, I have loved this book to death. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful collection of writing. And this is simply called What I'll See That Afternoon. This is also something you could try on your own. What I'll see this morning, what I saw last night, what I see today, and just list the details. The young man who has to look sideways through his glasses to see. The lady with the little dog. I'll put down my pack. A car jerking and popping with its engine cold. 4 bicycles in line unreeling their shadows. I'll slowly stand up. Down by the corner, someone beginning to scream. A brick wall that breaks halfway across. With a whirl of my head, I'll see it all tilt. The girl with the face. A piece of paper caught in a corner tree. Everything stops, and I am reaching out for everything. I conclude this little craft corner on the porch with one overall thought about showing rather than telling, and that is that coming to a conclusion too fast is overrated. When it comes to life, when it comes to our writing, if we can dwell in what is around us, if we can dwell in the images without giving in so quickly to the impulse to say what it all means, and trust those images to convey a meaning even deeper than what we can think of in the small segment of our frontal lobe, we can find meanings that keep unfolding and keep enhancing the core of our lives. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next week.